Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class from Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 9. And I'm filling in for Mother Gita, who has throat infection. She called in and said she cannot actually speak. So I'm covering for her this morning. Hare Krishna. Okay. So without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhana Hari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privajikacharya Stotra Satsishri Maharaj Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Stotra Satsishri Maharaj His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai अनंत कोटि वैष्णविंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गे गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Go. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. God Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Teta Swami Niti Namini. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddharth Pareshi Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Jatiti Namini. Narayana Namaskricha Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashya Prayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishchaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 9. Paranishthito pinaguna Uttam Sloka Uttama Sloka Lilaya Grihita Chita Rajashe Akyanam Yat Atitavan Parnishtito Pinay Guna Uttam Shloka Uttama Shloka Lilaya Grihita Cheta Rajashe Akyanam Yat Adhitavan Parnishtito Pinay Gunya Uttama Shloka Lilaya Grihita Cheta Rajase Agyanam Yat Adhitavan. Hare Krishna, please chant.
Parinistitopi nargunya Uttama slokalilaya Grihita cheta rajashre Akyanam yad adhitavan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You wanna?
परिनिष्ठितोऽपि नैर्गुण्य उत्तमश्लोकलीलया गृहीतचेता राजर्षे आख्यानं यद्धीतवान्. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
परिनिष्ठितोऽपि नैर्गुण्यम् उत्तम श्लोकलीलया गृहीतचेतराजर्षे आख्यानं यत्थितवान्. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay. So word for word, synonyms. Parinishthita, fully realized. Api, in spite of. Nyagunye, in transcendence. Uttama, enlightened. Shloka, verse. Lilaya, by the pastimes. Vihita, being attracted. Cheta, attention. Rajase, O saintly king. Akyanam, delineation. Yat, that. Aditavan, I have studied. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence. Yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. Report by Srila Prabhupada. The absolute truth is realized at the first instance as the impersonal Brahman by philosophical speculation, and later as the supersoul by further progress of transcendental knowledge. But if by the grace of the Lord an impersonalist is enlightened by the superior statements of Srimad Bhagavatam, He is also converted into a transcendental devotee of the personality of Godhead. With a poor fund of knowledge, we cannot adjust to the idea of the personality of the absolute truth. And therefore, the personal activities of the Lord are deplored by the less intelligent impersonalists. But reasons and arguments, together with the transcendental process of approaching the absolute truth, help even the staunch impersonalists to become attracted by the personal activities of the Lord. A person like Shukadeva Goswami cannot be attracted by any mundane activity. But when such a devotee is convinced by a superior method, he is certainly attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord. The Lord is transcendental, as are his activities. He is neither inactive nor impersonal. Oma Gyanati Mirandasya, Gyana Ganashalakaya, Chakshu Amritam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sundavari Paschatya Shitarini. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurata Se Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. The translation again. O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence. Yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. Hare Krishna. So this is Shukadeva Goswami speaking. O saintly king, so he's referring to Maharaj Pariksit. He says, I was perfectly, or certainly situated perfectly in transcendence. Shukadeva Goswami, that is not a very surprising statement to hear from him. He is a pure devotee of the Lord. He's from the spiritual world. He was situated in transcendence in Nityasiddha. Those people never fall. They are so attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's activities that they are always constantly thinking of him. So this Maharaj Pariksit is being told by Shukadeva Goswami that even though he was situated perfectly in the spiritual realm of thinking every time, he still was attracted by the pastimes of the Lord. One after another, he would like to hear it. So these are the kind of devotees, the pure devotees, who when they hear the pastimes of the Lord and even hear it again, it's sweeter to them. The more they hear, the sweeter the pastimes become. This is also one aspect of Krishna Prema. Krishna Prema has 7 levels, and then there's an 8th one, which is Madanakya Mahabha, belonging to Srimati Radharani alone. Now, still, the pure devotees would hear and hear and hear and get excited about hearing. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes this. Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport about the absolute truth being realized as the impersonal Brahman, and then the localized Paramatma, and then Bhagavan. And the point of a person coming to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Bhagavan, it is by the grace of the Lord. It's by the grace of the Lord that even an impersonalist who is first thinking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the impersonal Brahman can come now to the stage of Bhagavan having a personal relationship with them, or at least having the understanding that the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be a personal one. Then they work their way into getting to that point. Srila Prabhupada has actually put us on the top floor, passing by the impersonalism, localized Paramatma, and having us connect with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's presentation of Krishna by the chanting of the holy name, which is Krishna himself, because Krishna is absolute. When we chant and we connect with Krishna in love. And it's all a personal attraction and a personal connection. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that the grace of the Lord can be showered on a person who wants to know more, but it's in the impersonalist realm. And that person can also become a transcendental devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have examples, so just give one example. The four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatan, and Sanat Kumara. They were born from Lord Brahma, but they were impersonalists. And so that's what they knew. They knew an impersonalist think about the merger into the transcendental effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't think about things from a material standpoint. That's one thing that's in their favor. And so do those who meditate on the super soul. But the highest is to relate on a personal level the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And even for fallen conditioned souls like us, or some of us, we still have the opportunity to relate on a personal level because of the grace of the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada literally revolutionized the world by writing that many books, and with his disciples and later on grand disciples distributing the books. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says, that's the Brihat Mridanga, the greatest drum that sounds Krishna consciousness the whole planet over. We should definitely be a part of it. It is very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada and definitely pleasing to Krishna when Srila Prabhupada's books are distributed. People still like reading books, and therefore, if they get their hand on the books, they may read immediately, they may read later, they may give it to a friend, but somebody's going to read it and understand this point about how attractive Krishna is. He is the Supreme Lord. And so the four Kumaras, they got to see Lord Narayan. When they traveled to Vaikuntha and Jaya and Vijaya, the gatekeepers stopped them. They got upset with the gatekeepers because the gatekeepers said, we are not allowing 4 little nude children to come to the spiritual world. We won't let you in. And the 4 Kumaras just were like that by size, but they were not little, nor were they unwise. They were very wise, but they were at the impersonal level. And they responded to Jai and Vijay that this behavior is not a behavior that is expected in the spiritual world. This is done in the material world. So if you're going to behave like that, then that's where you should go, to the material world. So they were cursed to go to the material world. But at that time, Lord Narayan showed up at the gate that Jai and Vijay were and took responsibility for what had happened. But what happened also was that when the 4 Kumaras saw Lord Narayan, their minds changed immediately. And now they switched from their impersonal understanding to a personal understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in the case of those who are pure, like Shukadeva Goswami, the Lord is still very attractive. He's all attractive, and therefore, stories about the events of the Lord's activities are very attractive to pure devotees. They like to hear, they like to talk about those, and that's why Shukadeva Goswami made that point. that yes, I was situated in transcendence, but still I like to hear topics about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, those who are situated in transcendence, that's what they like to do. That's what they like to do. So it was actually a revelation from Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Pariksit that I like to hear too. And so he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from his father, Vyasadeva, and now he's going to speak Srimad Bhagavatam to the benefit of, or for the benefit of Maharaj Pariksit and everyone else that heard later on. Just like Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna and everyone later on that connected with the transcendental lifestyle or culture is also open to hearing from the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful expressions and explanations by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. We're fortunate to have even further explanations by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, which now brings a greater understanding of a scripture and greater understanding of the application of it so that we can live a spiritual life. Maharaj Pariksit was ready to hear for 7 days because he had 7 days to live. And he immediately came to the banks of the Ganga. And of course, as far as the river goes, there's also a description about it. Was it Ganga or Jamuna? That Jiva Goswami is saying that the Jamuna River was close to where Maharaj Pariksit was at. So more than likely, if he didn't travel too long a distance, then he was at the Jamuna. But Jamuna or Ganga, actually, there is a connection between the two. Just like, and Srila Prabhupada explained this before we get back to Shukadeva Goswami again at this point. Just like it is stated to us that the benefit that's derived from chanting 1,000 names of Vishnu can be obtained by just one pronunciation or one chanting of the name of Lord Ram. And that 3 times chanting of the name of Lord Ram, you can get the benefit of chanting once the name of Krishna. So there's a similar connection between Jamuna and Ganga anyway. It's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. And he explained that when the Ganga is purified 100 times, it becomes Jamuna. So there's a connection between Ganga and Jamuna. So in some parts of the Shastra, it says that Maharaj Pariksit was situated at the banks of the Ganga, and then other times too, which the Prabhupada's brought the point, that Srila Jiva Goswami quoted the Puranas to say that Maharaj Pariksit was actually situated on the banks of the Jamuna. But those can be connected like that through purification 100 times of Ganga to become Jamuna. This is what Srila Prabhupada explained. Anyway, so Shukadeva Goswami is not attracted by any mundane activity. That's where we need to get to. Mundane activities have to go, and we're speaking for our own purification. Sometimes things that are happening become a little bit attractive to us because we are here in this material world. And in the material world, so many things happen and they get reported this time because of electronic advancements. Everything around the world can be explained from one spot with even pictures and so on, showing what actually has happened. Hopefully, everybody can see it as, and the way the news is expressed, usually things that are troublesome are the ones that get the first reports from. Well, for a devotee, that should be a reminder that the material world is no place to be. Every time we hear about things that's happened, like recently, this about 3 days ago, that this area in the northeast area here, all the way up to just one side, the eastern side of the United States experienced an earthquake. Mm. So nobody's immune from anything that can happen on this planet. This planet is not designed to make people happy. It's part of the material world, and the material world is a house of correction. Our home is in the spiritual world, and that's why Srimad Bhagavatam is being spoken by Shukadeva Goswami so we can get purified and see that we should be detached from the material activities and be more attached to Krishna and hear about Krishna's pastimes, chant Krishna's name, discuss things about Krishna. So that's also what the pure devotees do, not Shukadeva Goswami only. Pure devotees do that generally, and it is described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, Opulence of the Absolute, text 9. Machita makita prana varayanta parasparam katayantas cha mam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. And the translation of that is, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. They think about me all of the time. Krishna is saying, their lives are fully devoted to my service. Their lives are fully devoted to my service. Pure devotees, 100% want to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, for doing that, they derive great satisfaction, and they also become very, very happy from talking about Krishna to enlighten each other. In other words, they share their realizations with each other, and they converse. The conversation is about Krishna. Those who read Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, you'll find that every time he was speaking, the connection was always there to Krishna. He spoke about Krishna. Even sometimes just taking a walk, he would do his morning walk, or sometimes he'd be in a certain place, and based on the weather, that would remind him about the spiritual world, and he would make a comment based on the weather in the spiritual world. He's always thinking about Krishna. And that's how they derive great satisfaction and bliss. So pure devotees fully engage themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And they are always thinking about, their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of the Lord. And when they talk, just like Srila Prabhupada gave an example about Srila Prabhupada, they talk solely on transcendental subjects. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj was given a news article in the newspaper that was saying something negative about the Krishna conscious movement. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj said it was good for one reason, that Krishna was mentioned several times in that article. And because Krishna was being mentioned, he saw that from a transcendental level as good, because the more a person repeats Krishna's name, and so many times Krishna was mentioned in the article, people who reading the article would actually get affected by the name of Krishna if they mention the name of Krishna. Never mind what the article is actually saying, but Krishna is all attractive. And therefore, because so much was said in the article regarding the movement, but even though that came across, we came across in a negative way, so much was written mentioning the word, the transcendental word Krishna. So many people said that. Srila Prabhupada, I think it was the West Coast. Yeah, he went to visit. This is in the Lilamrita. And some boys that were playing not too far from where Srila Prabhupada's apartment was at, they would see him come out. And in a joking way, every time they see him, they say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. For them, it didn't matter. They said, oh, he's a Hare Krishna. So they say Hare Krishna to him. And Srila Prabhupada said he liked it very much. And he knew that they were just playing with him. They were not serious, but they were mentioning Hare Krishna. The Lord's name is so effective that in whatever situation that the Lord's name is mentioned, there is benefit. There is benefit. Even that the person that is saying it may not know the benefit of saying Krishna's name, they may say for a different reason. Still, there is benefit. So the pure devotees of the Lord, they talk about transcendental subjects. So we also should be involved in that way. Whenever we have the association of other devotees, we should be talking about Krishna or talking about doing service. We always should be mentioning things that remind us of Krishna. And our hearts will turn from just dry to being very loving and in a transcendental way. Srila Prabhupada explained that in the preliminary stage of devotional service, devotees relish transcendental pleasure from doing the service itself. And that is already a very, 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 very significant level, even in the preliminary stage. So if a devotee has service and they're doing the service with enthusiasm, they are already deriving transcendental pleasure. If they're doing the service with enthusiasm, nobody should do service in a grudging way. We're trying to develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nobody can grudgingly love anyone. It doesn't work. Therefore, nobody should put themselves to that stage or that situation, that level where they're doing service, but in a begrudging way. That's called a third level disciple. In the disciple relationship between the guru, spiritual master, and disciple relationship, there are 4 classes: first class, second class, third class, and fourth class. And it's explained that the first class devotee always obeys the spiritual master. Spiritual master is a representative of Krishna. So if we're talking about spiritual master, we're still talking about Krishna. The first class disciple obeys the spiritual master. Everything the spiritual master asks him to do, they will do it. If they ask a question to the spiritual master, it's just for clarity. Now, on top of that, the first class disciple has been around his guru so much, his or her guru, so many times, that there are some things that he knows or she knows that the guru will expect to have done. And so they don't even wait for the guru to say, do this or do that. So those things, they make sure they are done. So the guru comes and it's already done. So that person knows to some extent the guru's mind and does service based on what is needed. That's first class. Second class disciple does not know the guru's mind at all, but he's also 100% obedient. Whatever the guru tells him to do, he will do it. So that's second class. And so the advice is, if you can be first class, if the opportunity comes and you get to understand your guru more, but you should at least be second class. What's a third class disciple? The third class disciple is the one that spiritual master tells him to do something, gives him or her a task, and they begin to come up with excuses. Oh, I have this to do, this one is happening, I have others, this other priority, I can't do it right now. Or maybe somebody in the second or first class discipleship can be given the assignment to do it. In other words, they come up with all kinds of excuses not to do the service or the task asked by the spiritual master. Excuses. Fourth class disciple. Fourth class disciple is the worst kind. And fourth class disciple is the one that gets initiation, gets their name, and it's like, that's it. I'm done with I have now a name, I have a guru, but they don't think about service at all. They don't do any service at all for the spiritual master. Third class disciple will do some things, but they will come up with excuses, do some, not do others. Second class disciple is completely obedient to spiritual master, everything that is asked for, he does it and does it as priority. And first class disciple also obeys spiritual master, but there are some things that they know to do that the spiritual master would expect, and they do it without even being asked by the spiritual master to do. Now, in our devotional life, we should be at least at the second class level. Never disobey the spiritual master. In fact, it is an offense. There are 10 offenses to chant the holy name. First one is blaspheme devotees. Second is to put Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma at the same level as Lord Vishnu. Third, disobeying the spiritual master. So one should be at the second class discipleship level. Maharaj Pariksit was now a disciple of Shukadeva Goswami, and he was listening intently. So at the very least, Maharaj Pariksit was at the second class level. Now, everything was provided for a wonderful activity between the two of them, Shukadeva Goswami and Maharaj Pariksit. And then there were all these sages and the demigods also listening. And they came because they knew that Maharaj Pariksit was going to go back to the spiritual world, particularly to Goloka Vrindavan. And they wanted to see that happen. So they wanted to stay until the very last moment where Maharaj Pariksit is actually leaving. So they were so involved and so attracted to the Srimad Bhagavatam that they stayed to the very end. They knew that it was after the conversation in the 7 days that Takshaka would come and take as a service, it is a service actually, take Maharaj Pariksit's life. Because the real reason behind Maharaj Pariksit leaving was because Krishna wanted him back in Goloka Vrindavan. That was the real reason. So in that sense, then even Takshaka, the snake bird, was also performing a service because that was what Krishna's plan was. So sometimes it seems like they are reversals, but sometimes reversals happen in our lives, disappointments, but they are plans of the Lord. If we ourselves are always serving and thinking of the Lord, then we will find out that even those things that seem to be challenging have some benefit, some, at the very least, some lessons that we learn from it. So we should really, really, really protect our devotional creeper. And to that end, Srila Prabhupada is talking about Lord Chaitanya, comparing the seed of devotional service. Transcendental devotional service like sowing a seed in the heart of a living entity. And to that end, it is said that Lord Nityananda, with his plow, with his transcendental plow, plows the heart, the soil of the heart to make it fertile or to make it soft enough so that the seed of transcendental devotional service can be sowed in the heart. That is from Lord Nityananda. So the seed is sown, and even though there are so many living entities in different planets of the universe, only a few are fortunate enough to meet the pure devotee and get a chance to understand devotional service. So we're fortunate to have met Srila Prabhupada or Srila Prabhupada's devotees or disciples, and some were from the spiritual world. When a great personality comes, some people come before him, some people come with him, and some people come after him. There are pure devotees from the spiritual world also. So some devotees from the spiritual world came with Srila Prabhupada, and so they were already pure. And then some devotees were also purified, who were conditioned souls, but now have achieved purification, full purification, because of the service and the influence, transcendental influence of Srila Prabhupada. So devotion service is like a seed. And when it gets sown in the heart of the devotee, then we have to water it. Just like every seed is sown in the soil, it has to be watered. What is the watering? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when one comes to devotional service and starts associating with devotees, they should chant. First thing they got to do, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya has already sowed the seed in the heart of the devotee. So when they chant, that is what supplies the fertilization and causes that seed to grow. That's the regular watering of the seed, the devotional seed. It becomes a plant, and that plant grows and grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters the effulgence of the spiritual sky. What does that mean? It means that when we are chanting and doing other services, then our devotional creeper is becoming stronger and stronger and growing. More realizations come. Sometimes bad weather comes, but then the tree is strong enough to withstand the bad weather. Reversals happen in our lives, but we still become, we don't fall down. So more service means more growth. More chanting means more fertilization. The seed becomes not only a tree, but a bigger and bigger tree until it goes past the covering of the material universe. Now, when it penetrates the covering of the material universe, that means that the devotee has now understood that they need to be detached from material sense gratification. So then devotional service, then that tree, the devotional creeper now has become a strong tree and is not dealing with material sense gratification anymore. So then the person, devotional service, their mentality is all about Krishna and how to serve Krishna, how to serve Krishna's devotees, how to serve a spiritual master. And even the greatest or the strongest support for the roots of that tree comes from the fact that the devotee knows they have to serve with the same intent as they would serve the spiritual master or even the deity. We have to serve regular devotees with the same kindness, same attention, and same intent as we serve the deity and we serve the spiritual master. That is a really strong devotional tree there. That understanding will make a person steady and will make a person very, very loving towards, Krishna will be very loving towards that person. The person would also reciprocate with wonderful love in the way they do their devotional service to the Lord. But they're very, 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 they'll be attentive to all devotees, whether they're devotees that are peers or devotees that are senior to them or devotees that have just come and therefore classified as junior. And we're saying classified as junior. Nehemiah was also born a little boy that nobody knew who he was, but he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should never make the mistake of thinking that just because somebody had just come, that he must be a person that doesn't know much about spirituality. We should treat everybody with respect. We shouldn't expect respect from everybody. We shouldn't expect it, but we should treat everybody with respect because we don't know the identity of that person. So when a person's devotional creeper becomes a strong tree penetrating the covering of the material universe and it gets to the spiritual sky, it will go until it rests at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And for us, that spiritual planet is Goloka Vrindavan. By the mercy of a spiritual master, we get to be there. It's only a matter of time. If we do the things right, then, of course, we will get to go. So Krishna also says, on top of this, that those who are constantly devoted to serving him with love, he will give the understanding by which they can come to him. Teshan satatayitanam bhajata priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogantam yena mam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love. And when they say me with love, it means we serve the devotees also. If we serve Krishna only and ignore the devotees, that is third class devotee. You don't want to do that. We want to serve everyone. Everyone. If they're connected with Krishna consciousness, you serve them. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And when we talk, we hear about Krishna's pastimes, share what we know, like that. And then our internally will be happy, and then we'll be able to see how to live in this world without being so attached to this world, because the material sense gratification will become something that's a turn off to us. And the things that are lusty, things that this material world tries to put in front of us will all be something we look at it and just, turn and not even bother with it anymore. We can get to that point, but it takes constant hearing, chanting, to nourish our devotional kripa, and then from that we will grow and become very, very happy. Not to mention the fact that leaving this body will be the last time we'll be in the material world. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you for hearing. I hope Mother Gita gets well soon enough. It's wonderful to hear her lectures, but today I had to fill in for her. So devotees, you have opportunity now to unmute yourself and share realizations, ask questions, or some additions, even corrections if it's necessary. Do all of that. Let's have some talk about Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, all good Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for really stressing the point of chanting, taking to the process, the importance of devotional service, and also speaking about the levels of disciples, Sometimes I think we get kind of caught up in the Shastra or in the pastimes and everything, that we forget to do what I call self-evaluation, to actually see, where am I in my Krishna consciousness, and what, and the disciple that I should be. Because I think, like you mentioned, sometimes we get to this mental level, a platform where we get so accustomed to doing service, we get so accustomed to, doing it like in a very mechanical way. And then we just think about everything that we hear in Krishna book, but then we forget to ask ourselves, but as a disciple, what am I? Where am I? So how can we switch that consciousness, being so caught up in what's it like, being so caught up in the whole pastimes, but not seeing where we are at as a disciple.
It is good to hear the pastimes of the Lord. That's there. But the pastimes of the Lord are to motivate us to be attracted to Krishna more. What is actually what Krishna wants? Devotional service to him. There is sadhana, and then there's also seva. The hearing is important. And when we hear, we should not only hear about what attracts us to Krishna in terms of Krishna's pastimes, but we also should hear what our service requirements are, the things that we're supposed to do. And the two should go hand in hand. If we leave things at only the level of hearing pastimes and doing nothing, then we might as well listen to the news, right? Because that's all we're doing is we're just hearing. There's a whole temple, there's whole activities, there's chanting, there's serving, there's cooking, there's offering boga, there's cleaning, there's so many things we have to do. So all of that become very important. We cannot leave any of them aside. it was strategic on the part of Srila Prabhupada to put Krishna's pastimes all the way down the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. If it's very sweet and people are just going to be attracted to that and not do anything else, then if that's what Srila Prabhupada wanted to see happen, then he would have put Krishna's pastimes in the first canto. But the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth are all explaining to us through the pure devotees of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada's purpose too, definitely, because he was translating and giving purpose, and so the pure devotees of the Lord and the incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead all coming to talk about Krishna, and how to relate to Krishna. Serving to Krishna is actual action. Hearing is only a part of it. And we should hear, actually, in our level, the priority should be to hear about the first 9 cantos so we know what it is that we have to do. Then, when we understand our relationship with Krishna and how to grow that relationship by our actions and how we relate to other devotees, then you can hear about what is sweet. So the work is on purifying ourselves, working on ourselves, the kind of person that is willing to do service, the kind of person that's kind, the kind of person that is very careful not to be offensive to others, in other words, what to do, what not to do, and a person that is quite familiar with the nectar of instruction, quite frankly. Everything in nectar of instruction. Having to disconnect from the material world in terms of the sense gratification, material sense gratification, what it is that you have to do in order to be loving, what it is that you have to avoid so that you don't get into the pitfalls. All of that's explained. Each one of them, each shloka in the nectar of instruction is a whole, not only a lecture, it's a workshop by itself. And so with that, then we talk about Krishna. With that understanding, then you can relate the pastimes also. The pastimes should not be first. The pastimes, Srila Prabhupada has put it at the 10th canto. That is to tell us that we need to be purified, detached from things that are mundane, and get our conditioning worked on so that we become purer and purer and purer. And then we can hear the pastimes with wonderful, wonderful, wonderful connection. But it shouldn't be the start, because unless you're a pure devotee, if you start with the pastimes of Krishna, see, pure devotees already know what to do, so there's no issue there. But people who are conditioned, if they start with only the pastimes of Krishna, they'll never understand devotion service properly. They just won't. They just won't. They'll think it's just something you come, you just take it, and then it's enjoyable. We just heard it, and okay, so that's it. And we could just talk about it. Stories don't put food on the table. You have to work to cook and put the food on the table like that. Offer the Krishna and then have the shadow. So activities and sadhana comes first. Pastimes come later. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for mentioning the point of purifying ourselves, meaning our mind and our senses. That was a very key point, I think, is in that whole process of spiritual growth is purifying our mind and our senses. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada. Any other comments or questions? We're not saying that we shouldn't hear the pastimes. The pastimes are wonderful, but they penetrate better when we understand what we are supposed to do as devotees first. Then the pastimes become icing on the cake, literally. When an icing, is sweet. So definitely serve, definitely be open to serving. That's the best thing. That happiness should come from service first. Hare Krishna. Any other points or questions? Okay, we are at the top of the hour, 9, at least if you're in the east. Eastern Time is 9 o'clock. We thank you very much for coming in to hear this lecture. And thank you for allowing me to do this service. We hope all of us should pray for the welfare of Mother Gita, who's a little bit now under the weather. Shavana, oh, sorry. Hare Krishna. Sorry. Some things I'm talking about, I almost quote it from the Bhagavad Gita. Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubheva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Jai. Surrender to the Lord. That's what almost came out. Sarvadharma parita jamami kam sharanamrita. Shila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai. Go to Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Say.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Shadow Mataji.